Welcome to the Raj Kotecha Show, #1 podcast in Dubai. And in today's episode of ALGO, aka A Lot Going On, we are talking about being out and about in Dubai, including a visit to a secret restaurant and a not so secret place, Monkey Bar. We talk about why we love it so much. On top of that, we're talking about Spotify and why we think you should pay more attention to it. Not only why you should pay more attention to it, but how you should pay attention to what it's doing, as well as Netflix getting crushed on the stock market after losing 200,000 subscribers. We talk about what that means for them, as well as the wider content industry. And of course, you may have heard by now as well that Dubai has poured some delicious barbecue sauce all over its visas, making them even more tasty. And finally, some concrete answers around my travel plans for this summer. Content recommendations include a double whammy with Elon Musk, Craig David, and a drunk deep dive with Snoop Dogg, as well as a quadruple hip-hop album release coming up in the next few weeks. You're going to love it. Make sure you hit subscribe wherever you're watching this content or listening to it. Vik, run the music. Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a massive shout out to Guilt Burger, our friends over there, Adib and Madison, who just came over to drop this off. I've got some fries here, got a burger over there. It looks absolutely delicious. Vik also has a burger.
Got a chicken burger.
Do you want to take a bite of it? Take the first bite.
Not on camera.
Take the first bite. I know we said we weren't going to, but just tell me what you think.
All right.
And we want to give these guys a shout out because even though we do not have sponsors, because we don't really move like that, we do appreciate it when someone sends us something and supports the show. And Adib has been my man for a long time. Ex-Kareem, venture guy, super guy. So I'm just going to keep filling this space up whilst Vik takes that first bite.
That's good.
Is it?
Yeah, really good.
Because you like chicken burgers as well,
I
right?
like chicken burgers. Pickle is good. Cabbage is good.
Put it up against the cat. Can I just give it to me?
Yeah.
Let me, so that cats can see it online. That's a good looking burger. It's got some of that purple cabbage inside, beautiful buffalo sauce, pickles. I mean, it just looks like a mouthful of happiness, unless you're vegan, which, we don't offend those people because vegan food is absolutely delicious. But until then, Guilt Burger is available. Great food. Check them out on Zomato. We appreciate you guys sending us a lovely lunch. We're going to eat it and then get back to the show. All right, so time to get into it. Vik, how's it going?
Yeah, really good. Looking forward to today's show.
We had a good week last week. We managed to get the episode out in a good amount of time. So it's been out there living in the universe for a little bit longer. And each video episode now is fast approaching 100 views. So good news about that. I'm quite happy about that. Yeah. How did you find editing last week?
Editing last week was a lot easier than the week before.
Yeah.
Because it was a shorter episode, which means, we were able to get out on time. But I think we've figured out some new ways to chop these episodes up, I think.
Yeah, we're going to add some of that into it. There's a futuring content for you still.
There's a future. I don't know, man. I hope not.
Yeah. Well, I've got faith in you. So today's first subject is...
out and about in Dubai.
Mm-hmm. It's been quite an eventful week. About Medium. We've not been out that much. It's been pretty hectic. But one thing that did stand out to me this week was heading over to Monkey Bar in 25 Hours Hotel, which is just near DIFC on Sheikh Zayed Road, north on Sheikh Zayed. Really, really incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. So I was out the other day, like I mentioned, my boy Sal, who I go walking with, we'd not seen any venues for a while. So we were like, let's go check it out. A good friend of ours, Ian Riddick, who used to be at Miss Lily's, is now over there at 25 Hours. And I know once he went there, I was like, oh, that'd be pretty interesting. Because he only generally works at like cool places. And then I was like, okay, we need to go check it out. And it's been on my to-do list. Obviously, Beruz and Travi, they DJ there on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Or we're doing before Ramadan. So I was like, okay, I've got to go check it out. But dude, when I walked in there, it way exceeded my expectations.
How so?
It's got a beautiful fit out. And I found out afterwards, because we bumped into Nana and some other friends as we were leaving, that 25 Hours Hotel is like really popular in Berlin. Monkey Bar is their like standard bar that they have with that hotel.
Yeah.
And they're both very, very popular in Berlin. And when I went there, the fit out was incredible. The outdoor area at the back is got all these little nooks and crannies in and loads of foliage. So you can almost have this kind of like public privacy. So there's a long strip that you walk down where you can kind of like chill on smaller tables. Then they've got these like hidden booths, but around the tops of the booths are like bird cages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with loads of foliage around it. So it's really, really incredible. There's like 3 outdoor spaces networked together. There's the main area, like the main bar area. Then there's a shisha area, which they're still furnishing. And then there's a pool area, which is just got all your like pool bedside areas. Really dope. Wicked staff, awesome uniform. Shout out to Ivan, who held us down whilst we were out there. We met the manager and we talked about, potentially doing an event with him. And then the inside area is pretty nice as well, pretty spacious, good amount of space between like the wall and the bar. Very good food. Like we had a little bit of bar snacks and whatnot. It's a limited menu. And then the drinks we had soft drinks actually because I was driving, so I can't speak on the cocktails. But, you know, if everything lines up, it's really, really cool. So I think at some point I'd love to do an event there. It was really, really nice. And we've never, as event organizers, we've never ventured north of downtown.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that you went anywhere near past the IFC,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
So, I guess, we have kind of gone north of downtown in the sense that we've done DIFC events before, but no, it's just really, really nice. Highly recommended to go check out.
It's got a view of Museum of the Future, right? Is that right?
One of the best views of Museum of the Future. So as I mentioned, there's 3 outdoor areas that are networked together. Even from the main monkey bar area, which they've all fitted out, you get a really good view of it. But then if you're watching on YouTube, if you see on the screen right now, you'll see that the view from the Shisha Lounge, which they're eventually going to create, and that view is just incredible, like really, really exceptional. And that Museum of the Future has, rightly so, joined the iconic parts of the skyline in 100%. Dubai. So I feel like the ranking at the moment is probably Burj Khalifa is obviously going to be number 1. Burj Al Arab's been around. The frame, it's okay. But I really feel like Museum of the Future is really special, not only because it's a unique shape, but obviously they've got calligraphy on it as well.
Yeah.
So unlike the other buildings, unlike the frame or Burj Khalifa, it's got 2 things going on at once. It's got this incredible texture to it, and it's just a really incredible thing to look at night. Also, it's like silver.
Yeah, it shines.
Yeah, it shines. So it's a really, really incredible building. And, you know, Monkey Bar, I think, is going to absolutely kill it. Now, as we were leaving, as I mentioned, I met our friend Nana, who he works from, you know, wherever he needs to work from. He works in F&B. And he said that he's been hanging out there in the day and having like coffees. And they've got this big ass table in the reception as you walk in on the right of the hotel that's got like PowerPoints and stuff in it. And then as you walk into the reception of the hotel, if you walk straight through, they've got a courtyard at the back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it reminds me of like hotels that you'd get in like in like Seminyak in Bali or Thailand. Lots of like beautiful straight lines, incredibly high ceilings, huge parts of the hotel. Like when you go into the outside area where, you know, you look up and you can see all the hotel rooms around you, but directly above you is sky. Yeah. So it's just really, I can't believe I've slept on it. Like for something that good, I really need to start hanging out there a little bit more. So in terms of events, you know, stay tuned. We might do something, we might not. We're kind of still early in conversations about that, but really, really dope place. I would 100% like go to Monkey Bar just to chill out.
You know what's interesting in what you said, there's a couple of things. I mean, I've seen plenty of people post about it on Instagram, and, you know, it's definitely a place that I want to check out. But 2 things. One, there's plenty of space from the wall to the bar. And I hate going to venues where you can't walk past the bar because there's a queue and there's a wall right next to it.
That's West Lodge. West Lodge is just like that. There's not enough space. If the bar is 2 or 3 deep, and then you've got these cocktail tables on the left-hand side. Yeah, exactly. So it's really, really dense. So I agree with that.
That's a bit of a pet peeve of mine with venues, particularly when we're looking at like scoping out venues and stuff like that. That's an important part of the flow. But you know what's interesting about the hotel? You spoke about a big coffee table with PowerPoints, bright, open, high ceilings, courtyard. It's kind of encouraging people to come there and work from there, right? And that's smart because when hotels are looking at kind of how to increase revenue per kind of visit of a person or any individual, or how to increase their revenue, you can't just look at like booking hotel rooms. It's like F&B and all that kind of stuff. So if they've got inviting communal areas where people can come and chill, they're going to spend money on F&B. And then if there's a great bar like Monkey Bar, they'll be like, all right, well, I finished up. Let me go and grab a drink after I finish work. And I think
the lobby area is licensed. This area that I just told you about is licensed. So they've got coffee and it's licensed, and they've got insane furniture. In fact, what we should do just for like giggles is we should go over there this week and go check it out. Yeah, it's really, really nice. Yeah, really dope space. I think, we should definitely go check it out, we'll spend a bit of time there. In fact, there's probably a meeting that's going to come up at some point, so we'll go together for that one.
Yeah, we can do that, or we should work from there.
Or work from there for one day. Yeah, it's really, really dope, man. Really dope. So that I really like that. And there's also another place inside there as well. I think it's like a beer cafe. Okay. And the split is like 200 indoor, one north of 150 out. Wow. Yeah. I didn't see it because they were soft launched, and as is usual, more often than not, I don't get invited to these things. But Nana was leaving the soft launch, and we saw him in the lobby.
Obviously,
and he said it was really good. Yeah. So it was really nice. Speaking of soft launches, although we can't give away the name, because we did ask at dinner last night, can we talk about it on the pod? And they said, no, you cannot talk about the restaurant on the pod. We're going to talk about the restaurant on the pod, but we're not going to give away the name. I think that keeps us on the safe side of things. But last night, Vik and I were invited to the soft launch of a restaurant, which is opening here in Business Bay. I think it's definitely going to level up the whole of Business Bay. It's an incredible restaurant. And to Vic's point just now about the flow of the space, I told you I went to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And they were still like, fixing up the lights and doing bits and pieces. But as soon as I came back out of the bathroom into this main area, there was so much buzz. There must have been a dozen people going past me, like almost like human traffic. Like they was zipping by each other, but not bumping into each other. Super amazing space. And what I felt as well last night when we were at dinner, the food was excellent, and we'll talk about it when we're allowed to talk about it. But what was really, really incredible was, I don't know if you noticed this as well. We were sat on like somewhat of a low table. It wasn't a classic dining table like other people. And it had almost like a Goodfellas vibe. Yeah. Like a cabaret vibe. Yeah. Like people come over, say hello, shake hands. Because we were there with Nana last night. He and I know a bunch of people. He knew a lot of people last night because it was soft launch. It was industry. And it was just a really nice vibe. Like someone would come over, say hello, have a bit of a chit chat. We did it to some other people that we met. We met Neil Shukla there last night. So shout out to him, the artist and the designer here. And it was just a cool vibe, man.
Yeah, I didn't feel I mean, it was busy.
Yeah,
like
busy.
It was rammed.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like I was constricted in any way. I didn't feel like I was overwhelmed in any way. We were on our table. Although we were close to other tables, I didn't feel close to any other table. Every member of staff was welcoming. Everyone came over, like even the staff, people that, knew people at the table, and then other people as well. I just, like that whole thing. And when you said about the like human traffic, it's not just the staff, like the customers as well were part of that traffic.
Yeah.
And no one bumped into each other. It was really smart, slick. It's laid out really well. There's a lot of tables. It looks like there's a lot of covers. I don't know how many, but it's a lot of tables. There's sofas. There's a whole vibe.
Oh, they told me, but I forgot. I apologize. Yeah, go ahead.
But you don't feel congested. It's really well done. Yeah. Lighting was great. Music was great. Like, I can't wait to talk about it. But
they've got it out a whole floor as well.
Yeah.
Of a 5-star hotel, so it's beautiful. And another thing that they did really well was their approach to the entertainment was really cool. We'll talk, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that or not.
I think we'll pause on that. We've got about 3 weeks till we can talk about it. So,
but their approach to the entertainment was incredible. Really, really refreshing, non-invasive, very, very cool. Like almost like the way that they put the entertainment on there is almost like a palate cleanse. You're just chilling. You're just like, and then when you think you don't get oversettled into the venue, something happens and you're like, oh, that's quite nice. But it's really not in a way that's kind of like disruptive. So shout out to them. We'll talk about them whenever we can. And I'm sure maybe we'll be able to do something with them in the future. I don't know what. Maybe a private dining room thing. We'll see. We'll see. But that was super cool. And then also last week, I hit up Kite Beach in Al Quain. I really feel weird talking about this place because it's basically a slice of paradise. It's about 50 minutes north of downtown in another emirate. I think you have to drive through other emirates to get there, like Sharjah or something. But yeah, beautiful. Hung out there, had a bit to eat, did a few laps in the ocean. We wouldn't count laps. It's not as if we went to one part and came back again. But had a little bit of a swim. That's really cool. Highly recommended. It's perfect weather for swimming in the ocean now. Yeah. It just turned that way. And then, and that'd be it. That was out and about in Dubai last week.
Yeah, I mean,
what about you?
Not a lot, man. This week was a weird week. Weekend was a lot of family, like really heavy family. We had family in town.
Oh yeah, shout out to Rinesh and Sweater, our cousins,
and their
in-law
4 kids.
Yeah.
So they all came home. Everyone came home and had like lunch and pool day and all that kind of stuff. And then hardcore Sunday was with Ine.
What'd you do?
Took him go-karting.
Oh, nice. Where?
Motor City.
Oh, what?
There's like an indoor, I think it's called an autodrome.
Yeah.
And he just did his thing.
For kids?
There's kids and there's adults. I didn't do it because you can't, over 13 or over 12 would be considered for the seniors, like the adults can do as well.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do it with him. So I said, let him do it. He really wanted to. He's done it a few times now, like birthday parties. He loves it. So we did that. And then we went and watched a film, had dinner, just spent like family time. And then the rest of the week, the only thing I did was last night with you.
What about you? You went to watch a movie with him as well, though, right?
I can't remember the name of the movie.
Some recommended kids
Like,
movie.
Yeah, it's some kids movie.
You know what's weird about Motor City, though? So I went there. A friend of mine, Ray, was in town. Well, a friend of D. Murthy's was in town, Ray. He was representing, he's a talent manager from Los Angeles, and he was representing a race car driver. And we went to Motor City. That was the first time I went. And as soon as I drove in there, I really liked it. Now, I'm not saying that I like Motor City on the same level as the way I like Downtown Business Bay, but it's just got a certain charm to it. Like, it's just a nice part of Dubai that feels like you could be, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I just really like Motor City.
So-
It's got everything there in terms of food, groceries. I'm sure like living there is like mad cheap.
Well, so I've looked into it. I can't remember the numbers, but so Motor City is like a suburb in London or any kind of city, really.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's like a proper little suburb. It's got this like mini mall. It's got a Carrefour. It's got a Spinneys. It's got a Nando's. It's got like all these, like a whole bunch of great like food outlets. And then it's got the Motordrome and all that.
And our friend has a food court there, Nikki.
Yeah, it's got where meeting room and all those spots are.
Yeah,
There's
if
high
you
joint and all that there.
Yeah, you should. If you go to Motor City, Google High Joint Motor City or the meeting room, spelled MEATING, or he's only put in his Thai concept in there, which is
I can't remember.
Oh, yeah,
There's I think there's like 8 or 9 spots there.
Zen.
That's it. Zen.
Zen
Yeah,
Dubai. Yeah. So Google this place. It's got about, I don't know how many covers it's got, in maybe 40, give or take.
Yeah.
And it's a super basic like food court, but really some of the best food, like incredible Mexican, incredible Pakistani grill, incredible Sri Lankan food.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, like Zen, say no more. Like Zen is the same Thai food concept that's in Streetery and JLT. Yeah, Motor City, I've just got a little bit of a love for it. I mean, I really like that place.
So yeah. So back to the point. So that part of it, like, it feels like it's got a high street.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what I like
So
about it.
that
You're right,
main
yeah.
strip is like a high street, and that's what's missing in Dubai. You know, there's no way you can just walk down and go do your shopping, go check out this place. Like, look, it feels like, if anyone knows London, like Harrow or like a little suburb type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are some really nice residential places there. So just about like on a parallel road to where the Autodrome is, there's like villas that look like Dubai Hills.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, and then there's these other villas that are like massive. The pricing is not dissimilar to Dubai Hills, so it's not that cheap.
Right.
It's well located. And I've been there a bunch of times because where I live is not too far from Motor City. So we used to do our spinny shop and all that there. But yeah, so it's got that kind of high street charm. Local suburb kind of charm to it. I like it.
I like anywhere that I can talk about in Dubai that doesn't make me want to spit on the floor.
Fair.
And Motor City is definitely one of those places. Okay, so that's out and about in Dubai. Busy one. Well, not that busy, but a fun week. And of course, we've been working on the 4-piece content strategy. Some exciting news coming out about that in the next couple of weeks. Probably, I would say, when it comes to what we're doing on the content strategy side and educating people, keep the 14th of May free. There's a high chance that we'll be doing a free educational event in a cool venue with lots of amazing people, lots of business people that care about content strategy that would benefit from it. We're going to be revealing some of our biggest case studies over the last couple of years, how we've done what we've done. Maybe even some of those folks will show up. May 14th, keep it free. It's a Saturday, and there'll be a couple of slots where you'll be able to come down. Not the biggest capacity in the world, but if you're interested in stepping up your content game, you need to know that. Make sure you're there. Okay, next up, we are going to go over the news from the week. We've selected some stories that we think are pretty interesting, and we're going to start off with a kind of a bit of a 2 cents on
Spotify.
Yeah, so here's the thought process behind the Spotify thing. This week, I was watching a new show that Gary Vee's put out, which is a weekly summary of the Gary Vee audio experience. And it was on the second episode, and at the bottom, it kept saying to consume this episode on Spotify. So he's obviously directing people to consuming it on Spotify. And I've been wanting to share thoughts about Spotify with people for a while, because obviously you and I talk about it internally for clients all the time. But I feel like Spotify is a platform that's both making leaps and bounds in terms of what it can do as a platform, while still not being spoken about enough in the mainstream and in the content world. So on Gary's video, there was a bit at the bottom where it said, go to a URL. It'll be on the screen right now. I apologize if I say it wrong because I'm not looking at it. But it was like garyv.com/Spotify pod. And I texted you and I was like, yo, go to this URL. And then at that domain level, it redirected to his Spotify channel. Another couple of things that's happening with Spotify at the moment. Even this show, you might be consuming it on Spotify. You'll notice that the video version is now out on Spotify. You can watch this episode on Spotify, which has kind of made its mark in the world as an audio platform, primarily for music, but now for podcasting as well. So now it begs the question, what is it that Spotify is going to do next? You know, if Spotify launches polls, things are going to get very, very interesting. If there's a poll that comes alive for the first week or 2 weeks of a podcast coming out, you look at something like Group Chat or All In Pod, or even this podcast, people where there's a lot of people listening to it, and you start getting insights from it, that'll be pretty interesting. I think we've not even started to scratch the surface of what Spotify could do in terms of NFTs. The rumors now, or it might have even started as of this morning, because I saw something on Instagram today about potentially Coinbase has started their NFT gallery. If Spotify has an NFT gallery, whether those NFTs are handed out based on how much of an artist you consume or based on NFTs that you can buy, I think that becomes really interesting, especially when Ethereum goes to L2 and gas fees become a lot cheaper. Merchandise sales, and then this is one thing, and this is, I think, where Web3 could get quite interesting. For those of you who don't know, us DJs, we typically rely more and more, especially over the last kind of like 10, 15 years, on digital music. And the way that we've downloaded music to go and perform in clubs is through MP3. Now, there is BeatSource, Beatport, and Tidal. I believe they're the 3 platforms that you can now log into using your DJing software, download music, not to keep, but the way that you localize it on your device, if you were to localize Spotify songs, and play that. And if that was all in the blockchain, if somebody kind of declares that they're a DJ and they're on BeatSource, these labels and these artists will now know which DJs have played their records when and how. They might not be able to associate it to a nightclub, but they might be able to associate it to a state or a city. So you'd be like, okay, yeah, DJ Envy was in Denver, Colorado, and he played 14 Future records. So this is something which I think could get quite interesting. And I wonder, because I was thinking about Spotify and their funding and the innovation that they do, that if you can attach Tidal to Serato and you can attach BeatSource and Beatport to Serato, download music, play it live in the club, over time there becomes like an attribution layer which tells the labels and tells the artist this is what you're doing. Why wouldn't you have Spotify do it? Because the technology is out there with numerous competitors. SoundCloud does it too. Then I thought to myself, well, the power move would be that Spotify itself launches a DJ software, because Serato has become the incumbent now. And, you know, there are people like Mo Jax and even Kish when he was here. Kish has a show on HFM in London, and he was saying that he upgraded his MacBook to the new MacBook, the not the M series that you have, Vic, but like the MacBook Pro. And he said that that no longer works with the SL box. So he can't use the SL box on his turntables when he's at the studio. So it makes you think to yourself, well, if I could just plug in a USB-C and I could use Spotify as a DJing software, because it's actually low tech. You know, there's a software called DJ or EJ or something like that. There's a really ghetto one that's not Serato and that's not Rekordbox.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
Like amateur, like it works. It works in a nightclub environment. But, you know, I was just thinking about Spotify and I was just sharing with people because I'm spending a lot of time thinking about Spotify, and I'm watching it now with a magnifying glass, because I feel like between now and the end of the year, what could happen with them? You know, you and I at the moment are producing a lot of video content, Vic, around the 4 Ps of content. We're recording the strategy to put out on a learning management system, which is called Teachable, and that's specifically made for putting out educational content. But could Spotify do that? Could they do paid subscriptions? Could they even then start having education on there? Because there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in fintech and edtech, and I believe that if the Venn diagram of those two overlapping, whether it be fintech and cryptocurrencies and micropayments and edtech, just educating people, could Spotify make one move that soaks up a lot of the NFT traction that's going on in the world, a lot of the stuff that's going on with edtech, a lot of the stuff that's going on with merchandise and digital merchandise, tracking, attribution, DJing. And people are so concerned, and we're going to talk about this with what's going on with Netflix and all these other platforms, that I don't think people are paying enough attention to Spotify.
I'd agree with you. I don't think enough people are paying attention to Spotify. And I think what Spotify is going to become in the next, let's call it 5 to 8 years, maybe even 10 years, they're going to become a full 360 kind of platform. So taking everything that you said into consideration, whatever happens or doesn't happen, is going to become a 360 platform. Why? Because and I think on one big condition, the tech, the innovation, fine, we know they're strong in that, but they've got to give a little bit more control to, or give a bit more insights and be a bit more collaborative with the creators. So for example, you talked about the DJing side. So now if you see that this DJ in this city is playing a bunch of future records, why is that? And if that keeps happening with different DJs in that same city with that same artist, well, do they talk to the artist and say, okay, well, look, focus some of your marketing efforts in this region, or, you know, this is where you're...
That's been happening.
Right?
Yeah, that's been happening. That data is shared with independent artists and labels.
Oh, fully shared, yeah?
Yeah, so people are already mapping their tour routes based on consumption.
I had no idea about that, yeah.
Yeah, the Spotify is... you know, at the end of the year, they tell you,
they
okay,
do
this is your,
yeah.
They do like a wrap up of the end of the year. They tell you what you've done in terms of consumption. They also tell that to artists.
But I didn't know it's that detailed in terms of like locations, geography and stuff. I didn't realize that.
Well, I think what we can do is in the next week, we'll speak to our friend who's not too far from here, and we'll ask him, because he's had a couple of records go gold and platinum in the last few months.
Yeah.
So we'll find out what kind of insights we've got. He works with some big artists.
The other thing is interesting is that there's been a lot of kind of artists that don't want to stream on Spotify or don't want to use streaming platforms in general because of low payments and just kind of, it doesn't really mean anything, and it's just like an advertising tool for their tours or whatever it might be. We'll talk about this a bit later, but I heard Snoop Dogg released his album Back on Death Row in the metaverse, not on any other streaming platforms, and it earned, I think, $21 million. He didn't earn that, but the album earned it. How that's distributed, I don't know. But there might be an opportunity to then start integrating that, like you said. What's the Web3 play for Spotify? How can you then encourage artists to have more ownership and get more value out of using Spotify through Web3 or NFTs or using the metaverse or whatever it might be? I think that's an interesting angle. I don't know how that would play out. I don't know enough about that world, but I think that's a really interesting angle.
Well, like when you get a bit fat and then you diet crash, that's what artists are doing at the moment. They've gone too extreme on the monetization because they're so offended by the current monetization. Yeah. So if you look at Kanye only releasing his album on a hardware device, or you look at Snoop putting his album out in the metaverse, like, yes, you're going to get the lion's share of the money, but the cultural relevance is where they're going to go missing. So imagine it like this. Streaming starts, people go, damn, streaming and piracy means that the monetization opportunity of pressing CDs and the money I make on that is now gone. So what did the industry do? They responded by going aggressive on live shows. And live shows obviously is good for the artist, good for feedback, good for recognition, and great for pay, because at live shows they're selling Pepsi at $10 a cup, or alcohol at triple, quadruple,
the whole lot,
the whole lot, right? Now, if Snoop says, I sold this many tracks, I sold this many NFTs in the metaverse, firstly, those NFTs have to have other utility in the future. It's not just for the music. And secondly, if he walks on stage and tries to perform those records, it's not going to get the same response as Drop It Like It's Hot or G Thing or anything like that. So what's going to happen is we've gone from the industry collapsing, everything going to live. Now there's a massive monetization opportunity that arguably is bigger in the metaverse than live, which has never happened. There's never been a bigger opportunity to make money than live. And now along comes the metaverse. But then we forget that live is not just about the money. It's also about the cultural relevance and the feedback loop. Yeah. And so if you do the metaverse stuff, you're now missing this. And this is what happens, right? We know that with technology and culture, it swings back and forth. And when the pendulum swings, it moves into an opportunity but creates a vacuum. And that vacuum then pulls the pendulum back. And it's going to take 3 to 7 years. I think you called that just a minute ago. Like, it's going to be about that amount of time before we see this settle down and there's an equilibrium between the metaverse, NFTs, merchandise, streaming, live, and the whole ecosystem for the next 20, 30 years to play out.
And it'd be interesting to see how Spotify think about edtech, like what you spoke about, because again, now with the introduction of video, and prior to that, podcast, which are all ranging, but there's a lot of educational podcasts, and people go to Spotify for that. What else can they get from Spotify? What else can Spotify give an average consumer? Forget like NFTs and Web3, because again, your average Spotify consumer is going to have to jump a bunch of hurdles just to figure that out outside of Spotify, let alone within Spotify. So what else could they be doing? I actually don't think education, like things like courses or anything, it would be on the horizon yet. I don't even think it's the right play for them right now.
What about edutainment? Let's say Tim Ferriss did his own version of Masterclass on Spotify. Like, Spotify's not even scratched the surface yet. Like I told you this week, I was on Instagram and I saw an Instagram account called @Studio, which is obviously a high value Instagram name. And when you look at the adverts, it's indistinguishable from Masterclass. And David Blaine was the guy who was doing the @Studio thing. So I was like, okay, we're talking about like content, which, there's not going to be exams and there's not going to be interaction and marking and consulting that comes off the back of it. Not like the machine that we're building. But if Tim Ferriss has a course on Spotify and it's edutainment, it's one-dimensional, like single duplex, it's just presented to people and that's it. Same way you consume Masterclass. I think it could be quite real. And not only that, but there's a lot of social media dynamics that haven't been leveraged on Spotify. Like, for example, when you go to someone's YouTube page, they have the flagship channel video, right? The channel explainer. Well, imagine you went to Wiz Khalifa's Spotify page and the same way you have the explainer, like, of course, when you consume a podcast, they have the overview of what the show is, like the summary of what the show is. If you had a summary of the artist, that would be quite interesting. Like, I found this artist, my friend Amanda posted, I think her name was Cleo Soul. And I heard the music as a background on Instagram. I checked it on Spotify. I just let it play. Every record was incredible. Now, if there was just a little bit of a video at the top that said, hey, I'm Cleo Soul, I'm influenced by Erykah Badu, I do this, I do that, I'm just making it up, that would then drag me into that person's world.
Yeah.
And then the question is, how do you then reconcile that? Which means that, do you, as an artist, are you able to be charged for how many of those plays happen? Because now you're talking about like a pay-per-click model. Like, you're making your money on streaming, but if Spotify can prove that 400,000 people in Manchester have just played your intro clip, well, that's an activation for you. Now, it would be terrible practice for Spotify to charge for that play or reconcile against that play, but that would be really functional for the artist, because that's the equivalent of then doing radio. And when you go do radio, you go do Breakfast Club, you got your handlers, you've got your transport, you've got everything. You've got to pay for your outfit for the day. There's real money in doing PR. You've got to actually pay the PR person or the radio plug to even get you the interview in the first place. So, I just feel like Spotify is definitely one to watch. And the reason why we talk about this on the podcast is I don't think people look at these platforms and run multiple hypotheses on them at once in terms of like revenue opportunities, Web3, streaming. This is the kind of conversations that you and I have on a regular basis. And this is the reason why we started this podcast, because we were originally going to call this Raj Kotecha's favorite positions. And I feel like these positions, if you look at these platforms this way, the moment there's a little twitch of innovation, you can forward extrapolate where that's going to go. Yeah. And speaking of Spotify as well, I saw this just before we started the podcast, but the Obamas are not going to be re-signing with Spotify.
Oh, really?
Yeah, their contract's up. So, it's interesting. It's interesting the kind of talent they can get. Of course, we don't need to mention Joe Rogan because everybody in the grandma talks about that deal. But keep your eyes on Spotify, guys. As a content creator, as a content consumer, as a technology enthusiast, it's not something that you want to ignore. And I feel like they've held a lot of their plays back. But soon, end of 2022, beginning of 2023, you're going to start to see a lot more interesting stuff come out of that platform. Cool. Next.
So Netflix is getting crushed in Q1.
Yeah.
So they lost 200,000 subscribers in Q1, which is actually against their forecast of adding 2.5 million subscribers. So that's a big blow for Netflix. What were the numbers? You saw the numbers on the stock price, right?
Yeah, I've got the stock prices up here, and what was interesting about Netflix is that they've definitely had like a 20% like sudden drop, which I think is obviously quite real. But the actual drop is if I just pull up the 6-month data here, their 6-month high was $691. So they are actually down at the moment to 226. So in reality, yes, there's a sudden 20% drop, but on its high over the last 6 months, you're talking at much closer to 70%, 65, 70%. And as you pointed out before the show, when we were talking about this, the big dip happened in mid-January. They lowered their expectations. At that time, they were at $508, and they went straight down into 366. And from then, there was a little bit of a rise, but overall, it's in a downward direction. This drop looks a lot similar to the one that they had in January.
Yeah.
And you pulled up the Reuters article as well, which I thought was quite interesting. We'll put that on the screen right now. But they said that they lost 200, but they lost 700,000 subscribers in Russia because of everything that's happening over there. So obviously 700 is higher than 200. So it seems to be that it's a 200 net. So all new additions and all people that they've lost on a churn basis, they're 200 net down. And they're predicting 2 million down in the next quarter.
Yes.
So that's looking like it's quite serious. I feel like that's interesting. And just coming off the back of our Spotify story, Netflix and Spotify story is pretty similar. They were both radical disruptors. They both took out large incumbents, and now they've become the incumbent. And so you wonder, could there be an issue for Spotify in the future? Because Netflix has been the darling for a long time. It became the standard, but now it seems to be really going through it.
Well, it's also getting a lot of competition with like Disney and other streaming platforms as well. Netflix, the thing about Netflix is this: they've been willing to invest heavily in content, not just buying content, but then starting to create their own content. So there's this swarm of people that are like, well, I'm getting everything and more from Netflix, and no other streaming platform is giving me that. When we start looking at things like Amazon Prime, Disney, I mean, Disney's catalog is not even worth starting to talk about, because we'll be here for days thinking about what their catalog is. But people are used to Netflix. And that's, I think they probably just got a bit lazy, and they're like, well, everyone's here. But I've been reading a little bit about this. The CEO on their earnings call potentially hinted that they're going to look at advertising, which probably had some negative effect on people subscribing or wanting to subscribe, because that goes against their fundamental policy. And then there's also this kind of password crackdown thing, right? Where there's like 100 million suspected users that don't have their own passwords and they're sharing passwords.
Yeah.
So how do they combat that? They're thinking about bringing in different subscription levels or whatever it might be, like multi subscription accounts for like homes and whatever it may be.
Yeah, they said that when they were building the product, it was not something they looked at, and now it's something they've got to address. But it's true, if you switch on my TV, you'll see like former housemates, cousins, like just names just up on the screen. So it is something that they definitely need to address. I think that let's just see how this plays out. I mean, relatively speaking, they were founded in 1997, so they were kind of the beginning of that, Web 1 era. They've been around a long time, and I feel like what we're going to end up seeing now is an adjustment of probably closer to what the valuation should be, because for quite some time it was a one-horse race.
Yeah.
But now you've got, as you rightly said, you've got Disney, you've got Apple, you've got HBO Max, you've got, who else?
Hulu,
Amazon Prime.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many now. All these stations, all these like networks are going to just start building their own streaming platforms for their own content. Yeah,
because the streaming tech is not the most difficult part.
No.
It is the content, and that's the reason why so much spending on it.
Yeah, it's the content. And I actually think that Netflix has been doing well, but I think it's plateaued a bit in terms of the quality of the content. And the other big challenge is, like, if we just focus on the content in Netflix, the other big challenge is this: there's too many shows and there's too many limited series. So as a consumer, me personally, as a 43-year-old guy who's a TV and film addict for many years. I want some longevity in what I'm watching, or I want some staying power because I want to follow the story. I don't care about it being like 15 seasons. I just need something that I can get my teeth stuck into. But if I'm watching a limited series, like one series or two, I'm like, all right, now I've got to think about what else I want to watch, or what else I want to watch, or what else I want to watch. And that has its own kind of challenges. And it takes you off the platform a little bit. My Netflix usage has gone down significantly in the last 6 to 8 months, like significantly. Not that it was like super high before, but I've seen a visible drop in my Netflix because I just can't find anything that I really want to like get my teeth stuck into.
They're now in a world where Netflix has as much content as TV had, period, in the 80s and 90s, period. Like when we were growing up with 4 to 5 channels. And what did really well at that time is pundits, TV guides, things like that. So now I think Netflix, they're investing a lot of money in original content like the Bridgertons or whatever you want. But they need to invest now in content about the content. They need to go from content creators and licensors to content curators. They've got to do a better deal of turning on the TV. When you turn on the TV, it says, hey, Vic, I know you're into this, this, and this. Just to let you know we've got this and this out. Because they've got the recommended section.
That sucks, man. That sucks.
I'll tell you when I knew,
rubbish.
I'll tell you when I knew things were going wrong. I can't remember. I think it was one of my girls was on Instagram. She's always posting a lot of memes and she's mad funny. And she posted this one meme, which was settling down before bed to watch Netflix, scrolling the options for 45 minutes and then going to sleep.
Yeah.
Because when you open Netflix, unless you know what you want to watch, you are entering it's almost like scrolling on Instagram.
Yeah.
It can become quite paralyzing and not efficient. And afterwards you feel like you've consumed a bunch of empty calories, like just watching trailers and looking for a show. And then ultimately being like, well, I had 45 minutes to watch a show. I spent 38 of it scrolling. I found the show I want, but I'm not going to start now with 7 minutes left.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or I'm
yeah.
just physically tired.
Yeah, the whole recommended thing is rubbish. I've never liked it. And not only that, they've got this like surprise me feature now as well. And frankly speaking, that sucks as well because I'm not surprised, or I am surprised by what they serve me, but it's not something I want to watch. It's like, it's stuff that I've either already seen or just like really away from what I have engaged with on Netflix. So I don't know, but I don't think they've got the suggestions algorithm correct. Whatever it is that they're doing, they haven't got it correct. And then they've got the top 10 and all of that. Yeah, I won't stop my subscription with Netflix because there are a whole bunch of shows on there that I'd like to watch and has always been recommended to me. But fundamentally, it's not a good user experience. And I think curating content is good, but it becomes challenging for someone like Netflix only from the point of view of this. There's so many people with so many different tastes in so many parts of the world. How do you curate the content for that individual person? Because they want individualized kind of curation. That's the kind of expectation. Most people are the same. Most people watch the same stuff. But as the individual, they want that. Whereas back in the day, when you had like TV guys and pundits, well, actually you had limited channels, limited time slots, and you just watched what was on when it was on. So it's easier to curate and easier to be like a pundit on these shows or a reviewer of these films or shows or whatever it might be. Now you're looking at like thousands upon thousands of titles. How do you curate that?
And people are going to be obviously looking at cost saving on non-essential. If your sentiment isn't as passionate about Netflix, you might be like, okay, in 12 months, $10 a month. I don't know what they charge, but that's $120 in my pocket. What can I spend that on? And we're coming out of 2 years where people haven't been outside as much. And they might be like, hey, listen, maybe I don't need it. I mean, look, truth be told, I mean, I'll leave my Netflix subscription on, but I'm thinking about going to, spending the summer on the road. Like if I genuinely thought I wouldn't watch it, I'd turn it off for 3 months and save the $30. Why not? That's an Nando's somewhere.
Yeah, it is. But also there's so many streaming platforms. It's like, where do you put your money? If you need to subscribe to every single streaming platform, you're going to be out of pocket a lot. Yeah. So then you just got to decide a streaming platform is necessary because people don't watch TV in the traditional sense and it's all on demand or for the most part. So then where do you put your money? So let's see. This one will be a good one to keep an eye on, I think.
All right, we're back. Just in case there's any change in chemistry, the doorbell rang and we got sent the burgers that we talked about at the beginning of this episode. So we kind of mashed it up and edited it up again. But Yeah, shout out to Guilt Burgers. Okay, so we've just covered Netflix. Next, we are talking about Dubai's new visas and Q4 predictions, which I just pitched you right now as something I wanted to tag on to the end. So, firstly, let's start with the new visas. A big week for Dubai. Dubai has these crazy announcements that it does, and I mean, this week they really took the biscuit because they've announced a couple of things. Now, let me just try and remember what I said on my Instagram. They've announced that tourists, and I want to say some tourists, I don't know if it's all, but I'm assuming it is, but do your own research. None of this is meant to be factually correct. It's just a little podcast. But it was very normal for lots of people to be able to come for 30 days. That looks like it's now changing to 60.
Yeah.
Then you've also got another visa, which, assuming that you can prove a certain amount of means, and it's a small amount, like
$4,000 of a bank balance or equivalent in foreign currency,
will allow you to reside in Dubai. Not reside as a resident, but will allow you to visit Dubai. Or it might be reside as a resident. Again, do your own research. I don't know. But 180 days out of the year on a maximum increment of 90.
It's actually a 5-year multi-entry tourist visa.
Wow. So that means you don't get a bank account or what? Probably not, right?
No. It's a tourist visa.
Okay.
But the point being is that you can apply for that visa as long as you can show the income or the amount of money in your bank of $4,000 or equivalent. You can stay up to 90 days, 90 continuous days in the UAE, but you can't exceed 180 days in the year.
Well, let's circle back to that in a second. The other one we want to mention is the golden visa, which allows you to stay here for 10 years. There's almost too many additional ways that you can now get that visa. One of them is investing in property, 2 million dirhams, and there's various others in terms of how they're embracing people with different talent levels. But let's focus on the tourist visas, because now that you've clarified that, I think that makes an interesting point. It was very normal for people, including myself, to come to Dubai as a tourist, spend some time on the ground. The city is very embracing. You know, you can go to all types of events. There's no kind of restrictions. When I started coming in 2014. But one thing that did feel like a bit of a restriction, a bit of an inhibitor, was having to leave within the 30-day tourist visa time. And there's a little bit of a grace period because Dubai is just kind of cool like that. But you'd have to definitely leave before the end of the grace period. Exit the country, come back in again. You know, you can go to London, you can go even to a nearby country and come back again. But I always felt like, there's no time when you leave in between day 30 and 39 that you feel like, I could have done with an extra week. Now you've got that period of time. And what that's incredible for, and what is incredible for me in my story with Dubai, is that when you come here, you're first looking for opportunities. And in other people's cases, they might even be looking for jobs. So to be able to come here right now for that amount of time, for 60 days, and then leave and then probably come back again is absolutely incredible. And then if you are in the kind of place where you don't get a visa on entry like we do as British people, and if there's any kind of additional paperwork that needs to be done, then you can actually get a visa that allows you to come here for up to half a year, essentially, effectively. Total days, as long as you don't break the 90-day mark on any one trip. So that means that you can come for 90 days.
Yeah, almost 3 months.
Wow. Schengen folks used to be able to do that, right?
Yeah, I think
Portuguese tourists, I knew
right.
we got a lot of Portuguese friends, and they used to come here and they had to do 90 days. And I don't know if it was 90 days on and then 90 days off or something, but it was a really good thing. But we say all that to say this, which is that anybody who visits Dubai, I'm sure if you look at it at a macro level, a percentage of them decide to stay. And this addresses the top of that funnel, the visitation bit.
So what I find interesting about this move, actually a good way to position it is this. Many, many, many years ago, people could come to Dubai, land, even within the 30 days, and probably find a job because there wasn't enough supply of good, qualified people. And there's a huge demand as the city was growing and building and doing what it needs to do. It's kind of inverted. There's a big kind of shift towards, people come in and go, okay, I love this life, I want to move here, but you've got to be on the ground. Like, you need to meet people, you need to be out, you need to be here doing interviews, coffee shops, networking events, the whole thing. No longer can you do it remotely as effectively, unless you're like super high skilled and there's something very niche about what you do. So whilst that's been happening, Dubai's kind of gone, well, let's allow people to do what they used to be able to do, which is stay here but by doing that, they're going to go, okay, stay here for longer. So that gives you the opportunity to do that. And all they're doing is kind of staging the ability for people to come and live and work here. And I think that's just, I can't see, obviously they want more tourists and they want more tourists to stay longer and spend more money here and all of that. But their big goal, one of their big goals is population increase. And this is going to allow them to do it, because people can't just come here on a whim and go, and you're talking about like, not just single young people who can do whatever they want. I'm talking about like, you know, family people, kids, uprooting your kids, taking that risk, taking that chance, taking your savings and going, I'm going to put it all on Dubai. People just can't do that anymore. And people don't want to take those risks anymore. So how can they mitigate some of those risks? And I think this is one way of doing it. And, you know, if the guy is coming out and the wife stays at home with the kids, or the wife comes out, you know, whichever way it is, they can come in and out, and it just makes them easy. It makes it easier for them to figure out their feet and find their feet in Dubai.
It's incredible. I love the fact that, you know, clearly now more people are going to be looking at Dubai. There are some, you know, political circumstances in certain parts of the world where people are looking at relocating anyway. And it's not just the typical places. It's not just like Russia and places like that. But there are lots of parts of the world where they're really considering where they want to place their roots. Dubai, as we've spoken about many times, has had a massive brand uplift over the last 2 years. When the rest of the world's been downward facing, this place has been upward facing. It's gone through one of the best branding exercises of all time that has eclipsed building the biggest this and the tallest that, which is just great leadership and the safety of its people. We've all felt very, very safe and protected during this time. So it's incredible. And I guess the second part of this section is bullish feelings towards Q4. So again, on one of the walks the other day, I was working this idea out, and I was thinking to myself, okay, if Dubai is now in the conversation with like serious parts of the world, where does it rank? Now, talking to friends in the UK, the Ukraine is a very real thing. It's in the news. It's in the news cycle. People feel threatened by it. Inflation is also another way of this conflict expressing itself, albeit it's obviously coming off the back of like economic stimulation. In the US, if I'm not mistaken, we go into midterms in Q4.
Yeah.
So you're going to have another potential changing of the guard where obviously the Democrats and Republicans are going to go at each other's throats. They're going to try and highlight the worst in each other, which is typically how they tend to communicate with the public. So I think there's going to be all sorts of mess. On the flip side, Q4 Dubai, which is October, November, December, which is typically what we call season here in Dubai. So for those of you who are not familiar with the city, season is basically when it's not just blaringly hot, and it's quite blaringly hot July, August. June, manageable, but keep some deodorant. September, same. June, July and August, a lot of folks travel. But I feel like Q4 this year, you look at the fact that Expo is going to be, the space that Expo occupies is going to be reopening as another space. We've heard some incredible things in the city about what they're going to do, but at least for the record, what we can share with you is that they're going to be obviously opening certain pavilions again and reusing that space. We know about some other things that are happening that will blow your mind. In addition to that, even things like Seoul DXB. Seoul DXB's been on the low for like maybe 1 or 2 years now since everything happened over 2020, 2021. The Seoul DXB comeback is going to be crazy. And you can say that just looking at the trends and the data. We don't know what it is that they're going to do, but it's going to be amazing. Because if you imagine all the artists are coming here all the time. We've already seen like, you know, the Rick Rosses and all these guys coming, but the way that Seoul DXB curate their artists, like, you know, you can have a Danny Lee and a Wu-Tang Clan, you know what I mean? Or a Danny Lee and a Nas, I think it was the same year. So it's like, that's going to be incredible. Qatar down the road is having the World Cup football. There's obviously, we've got the racing in Abu Dhabi, the F1.
The F1.
And then there's rugby. I don't know if that's in the first quarter of next year. But I'm telling you, if you're open to it, the run that Dubai is about to have, September, October 2022 into April, May 2023 is going to be all-time incredible. And I actually wanted to add this in to this part of Algo because I wanted to kind of go on record and say it. And I think that we're going to see, as the weeks and months go on, more and more stuff that's at this visa level that we're going to hear being announced that's going to suggest that more people will come. A portion of everybody who comes will stay. And now, places where, you know, if you remember pre-COVID, they talked about oversupply.
Yeah.
Well, that's now going to get met. Like, when you think to yourself, who's going to live in Dubai Creek Harbour, which is just north of the city here, where you've got EMAR, which are the people that built the downtown area, have built beautiful residents up there. Who's going to live there? Well, we're about to find out in the next 24 months.
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking about, you know, the announcement of the visas. Again, you know, comes at the right time. But I think over the last like 2-3 years, there's been a lot of development in Dubai, like a ton of like residential development, new, completely brand new areas that are never like there before. I hear now. And there is that oversupply or that worry of oversupply. And there was a lot of murmurings of that pre-COVID, during COVID, etc. Now they're like, all right, developments are basically ready for the most part. Most of them are online or they're about to come online.
Yeah.
So the timing of these like changes in the visa is smart, particularly like things like golden visa, because a lot of these people may not own houses or apartments or whatever. Be like, well, I've got a 10-year visa. I may as well have a property here because that rent to buy ratio that everyone kind of figures out is like, how much rent do you pay in a year versus how long you're going to be here for versus the investment into a property. What are the economics of that? So if you're going to be here for a 10-year period, then, well, frankly speaking, if you can afford to get the deposit down, you're better off buying an apartment than renting for 10 years because you end up losing money or basically paying the same.
And on the flip side, you buy the property, you get the golden visa. So now they're a lot more hand in hand because at 2 million dirhams, which for folks listening overseas is about 400,000 pounds, 500,000 US dollars, you can get a decent property here, probably better suited for more than one person occupancy, and you get the golden visa. And I believe in the golden visa, and again, do your own research, but like, I think you can also sponsor your spouse.
Yes.
You can sponsor a daughter at all ages and a son up to 25. So there's a ton of options there, which I think are going to be really, really good for, you know, for the city. But keep your eyes open. I feel like that if there was ever a time to come to Dubai, it's going to be, you know, now is great, but like coming to the end of the summer, if you really want to ride a wave as it's coming to shore, that's the time to do it. Yeah,
I have zero doubt that this Q4 this year will be the beginning of the biggest 12 months for Dubai that it's seen in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be bigger than the beginning of Expo. I think it'd be bigger, and I think it'd be more sustainable.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
The economy here.
Of course it will, because the beginning of Expo was, you know, coming off the back of the pandemic, and although there was a snapback, there's still some, you know, trepidation in travel, some restrictions in travel. You know, there's a lot of things like that, and that's just kind of what it was. But now the restrictions are basically lifted for most of the world, for the most part. I just don't see any reason why people wouldn't come here. I actually think more people will start coming here over summer, weirdly.
Not more than Q4.
Not more than Q4, but more than previously. Like more like year on year on summer.
That's a fact,
People will start coming in summer because, you know, people don't necessarily need to be outside in Dubai. They can just go, right, I'll do like the morning in the pool, daytime just do inside, whatever, evening outside. You know, people just like, it's a new destination to come and check out. Summer holidays in different parts of the world for school. Come and check it out with the kids, see what it's like. Is it a place that I could live? Could I move here? Is there jobs? You know, whatever it might be. And we're increasingly seeing summers being more busy here as well. Less people, I feel like, anecdotally, or just kind of what I see, are going for long stretches of time away. They might do like a couple of weeks here or a couple of weeks there or a month or whatever. But I think less and less people are going for the full summer because there's just still work to be done.
Yeah. And I feel like you just try and get it in whilst you can. Like, I know I'm traveling this summer, which we're going to speak about in the next segment. But normally I would just go somewhere for a week, 10 days. You know, we've been discussing this all morning. Like, the beginning of how long I'm away for, the conversation started at 2 weeks. Just because if I'm in England, normally I'd be like, okay, I'll just do London. But now if I'm in England, I need to hit where my parents live.
Of course.
I need to, I mean, that's almost a dependent variable anyway, but then I need to hit where certain other family members live that are as close, but just live further out. And it's like, well, I won't do that next time. Whereas pre-2020, I'd be like, I'll hit London this time, London, Leicester, Manchester, whatever, you know what I mean? Like now I'm like, if I'm on the ground, I have to hit all of them because truthfully, I don't know, when I'm going to go back. I have an idea, but like you try and juice it, like you said, you long it out a little bit more because you want to take advantage.
Of course.
So it's really interesting. Keep your eyes and ears open. And as we hear more about Q4, which I'm sure will be on a regular basis, anything that we feel is bullish about the market, we'll share it with people. But I think it's going to be booming. I can't wait.
Do you know, Dubai should have its own algo podcast.
Yeah.
Because every week there's a new announcement, like a huge, big announcement.
Well, they kind of do, right? Like the Dubai media department puts out lots of information on a daily basis.
No, I'm just saying like they should have an algo.
Have a podcast like this. Yeah, they should have us do it. It'd be good. Yeah. So again, now we did talk about official things in this section, but I'll say it again. Anything that we talk about, we're not checking out. We're not going deep diving into all the details. Go and do your own research. If you want to find out about individual visas, I think Vic, you were saying there's about 10 different visas.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest overhaul on visas they've done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it affects like 10 different visas, like green visas and tourist visas and some golden visas and like all kinds of stuff. I mean, I don't know all the details.
All right, well, go online, Google it. A bunch of jippos have written about it in all the usual places, so you can go get all the details you need from that. And finally, as we speak about travel and stuff like that, there is my trip to London, which I would say now is at the 95% mark, so I'm happy to announce it. It's going to be in the first 2 weeks of June. It's not just going to be London. It's going to be the different parts of the UK. Obviously, my priority is family. So if you're seeing this on Instagram and you want to get together, I'd love to. But just know that it's going to be like hanging out is probably going to make up no more than about 20% of the time that I have. And so what I want to do with that 20% is I want to be really efficient. The first bit of news that I have is that I'll be spending a lot of time in central London. And so if you work in central London, a lot of my network is there, then there's going to be opportunities to get together in short bursts. There will be a party June the 11th, which is a Saturday. Our friend Ritesh, who you've heard on this podcast before, and Rav, Flashback, will be throwing a party. I'll be in there hosting. I probably won't DJ because I'm thinking that there'll be so many people in the room that DJing is not probably going to be the best use of my time. But I'll be there. I'll be partying. Come hang out. There's some other people that I'm talking to, other artists that have got concerts and things on. I'll confirm where I'm going to be as I know. But yeah, London happening first 2 weeks of June.
Awesome.
Looking forward to that. Next up, we have
our content recommendations.
Okay, what have you got?
I mean, I'll jump on one of the ones that you suggested, which is Snoop Dogg on Drink Champs.
Yes. How much have you seen?
I haven't seen any of it. I've heard the whole thing.
You've heard it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You did the audio.
Yeah. I don't watch any podcasts.
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to watch and sit down and watch. So I listen to them all. Yeah, I listened to Snoop Dogg on Nori, on Drink Champs.
Shout out to EFN, our friend.
EFN, yeah. I mean, listen, what I did really like about the whole thing is that they did talk a lot about the death row days and kind of what happened, the conflicts, and it wasn't like super detailed and super deep dive, but Snoop did kind of address a few things. But ultimately he said, look, everything's kind of said and done. You know, bad things happened, but I'm cool with everyone. Like I've made my peace. I'm trying to build bridges now with everyone that was involved. Hence Death Row and Bad Boy kind of trying to look at doing a collab.
On NFTs.
On NFTs. When you get a chance to listen to it.
I think you're right. It orientates more towards the nerds. And I like the fact that he said, like, you know, what's he going to do now that he's got Death Row back? He wants to make sure that, like, you know, Rage gets paid, Warren G gets paid, the Dog Pound, Corrupt and Daz get paid. I thought that was really nice. It's really insightful for people like us that have been following Snoop's career from the beginning. And, you know, but one thing I didn't like, and I think this is because of the fact that I orientate more towards talk about Death Row in the olden days, is obviously they clarified a lot of stuff about 50 being on Super Bowl, Game not being on Super Bowl. And I understand why they did it, because it's different horses for different courses, and some people are a little bit more gossip orientated. I didn't find much value in that conversation, but I really did like the rest of it. And the last couple of episodes I've seen, and I know I just said he's a friend of ours as well, but I feel like EFN's been really good in the last couple of episodes. Like, I know that Nori's kind of like, I feel like Nori's just steadily this kind of like, he's just a bit all over the place and a bit loud. So you don't really notice it because there's so much of a up, down with Nori. But there's just been a constant up with EFN.
Well, EFN, yeah, I agree. EFN is solid. what I like about EFN is he's kind of got a bit more of a sniper approach when it comes to these interviews, because there is absolutely no doubting his contribution and his knowledge of hip hop. So his contribution to hip hop and his knowledge of hip hop. Because when he starts talking like really like kind of old school stuff, he's like, I mean, I don't know a lot of the stuff that he's talking about. He's talking about like groups from here and artists from there, and like people that have just come in like once with like a track and like left, and like, you know, you don't know all that stuff unless you're kind of in it the way he was. So I like the way he approaches that. He's not kind of just scattergun approach, and that's just their personalities really. But you know, I think, yeah, I like that he's solid. He's been really solid.
Yeah. Side note,
they had Kid Capri on as well. And
yeah.
Of course, for EFN, that's a big deal, being, you know, a DJ, and he was great with Kid Capri. When he gets the DJs on, he's in his element for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of which, rest in peace to K Slay. And then what else? Oh, by the way, speaking of Drink Champs, they've got Cypress Hill on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that Cypress Hill on the 14th of May has a versus
with Onyx.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. When we were discussing that and we threw some ideas around, I don't feel like Onyx is the best matchup, but we did say, and this would be legendary, this would actually shut down the internet, like to the same level of KRS and Big Daddy Kane would be Cypress Hill versus Meth and Red.
Yeah.
Even though they've done a versus amongst each other, them as a duo being presented would be incredible versus Cypress Hill, because that's about the same amount of hits and cultural relevance. Although, yeah, Cypress definitely goes much deeper, like Temples of Boom days, but like you're talking about, they're similar enough and different enough to put on an incredible show.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, yeah, you're right. They've got a similar kind of catalog, similar number of hits, similar kind of energy.
Similar number of huge hits. They've all got like long tail hits as well.
Yeah, for sure. But like if they just did their Cypress Hill joints and Red and Meth joints.
Yeah, just 20 lethal bangers.
Like it would kill. Like that would be, yeah, that would be like that would be one for the heads. That would be one that you'd want to like watch and enjoy, and you kind of don't care who wins.
Yeah, nobody wins in that situation.
Nobody could win.
And also both people win in that situation.
Yeah.
Hip hop wins. That's what they say.
Hip hop wins, yeah.
That's what they say at the end of everyone. Hip hop won tonight.
The culture wins, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be good. We thought about like maybe Wu-Tang and all that, but we ended up with Red and Meth, and I think that would be fire.
Speaking of which, on content recommendations, big hip hop few weeks coming up. So we came across this bit of information which has got us all excited, which is a four back-to-back, not back-to-back in terms of like same days, but there are 4 huge hip-hop albums coming out in the next couple of weeks. So starting off with tomorrow, Friday, or if you're listening to it probably today, Friday 22nd of April, Pusha T's coming out with the album It's Almost Dry. We know what that means. Then after that, on the 29th of April, Future, title to be announced, and that's coming out on the 29th of April, Friday. After that, Black Star back. I know you'll be happy about that. Talib Kweli and Mos Def. Well, Yasin Bey.
24 years later.
Yeah, the album is called No Fear of Time, and that's going to be exclusively on Luminary, which is where Dave Chappelle's got his podcast. So figure out a way to listen to that. And then finally, arguably, saving the best till last, or saving the rarest till last.
Yeah.
Mr. Morale and the Big Stepper album by Kendrick Lamar of Compton, California.
On May the 13th.
Very excited about that.
We said it earlier. It basically covers more or less the full spectrum of any kind of hip-hop fan.
Yeah, when you talk about like the quote-unquote best in class
in
the backpackers.
In their respective, exactly.
Best in class backpacker, Talib and them. Best in class of the new school, Kendrick. Best in class of the dope boy rappers, Pusha. And then Kendrick. Well, actually, sorry, I just said Kendrick.
Yeah, Future somewhere in between. Like
no, Future's of the mumble rappers.
In his time. Yeah, of the mumble rappers, of course.
Yeah, so like you've got, and not that he's a mumble rapper, exactly, but like if you look at the guys, and of course Future you can switch out for Migos, and Kendrick you could switch out for Drake, and Pusha you could switch out for anybody you want, you know, Ross or somebody, and Black Star you can switch out with 100 different amazing MCs because they come from a special class of MC. But yeah, it's going to be great. So whatever your hip hop fix is, you're going to get it. And then also on content recommendations, Elon's fireside chat with Chris Anderson at TED. Now, too much to cover in this one. I just want to point you towards it, and there's literally no point in going into too much detail. There's some great moments. The backstory here is that you actually end up getting 2 Elon interviews for the price of 1. because Chris Anderson, the founder of TED, went to the Gigafactory in Texas, did a long form interview with Elon. The thinking behind it was that he didn't know if the next day Elon would be able to come to TED, the physical event, but he was able to. So at the physical event the next day, they played about 8 minutes of the interview, and then the rest was done on stage in a fireside format. So now there's 2 interviews.
Are they different?
They're different, and they're both available on YouTube right now, I believe on TED's YouTube channel. And you can watch the full interview, which is a little over an hour at the Gigafactory. And then some of that was used on the live one at the TED conference itself, and that's also available. Very, very good, very, very insightful. Some great moments. He talks about how he is arguably, he knows more about manufacturing than anybody else on the planet. He talks about how he was essentially on the precipice of being bankrupt as recently as 2017, 2018. Just literally how hard he works, how great how he looks at life. And one thing was incredible. Early in the interview, Chris Anderson says, you make some predictions that are wildly accurate to the year, and you make other ones that are not accurate. And his response to that was, he goes, this may come across as like shocking news to everybody, but I'm not always right. So Elon's in top form. Definitely go and check that out. And then finally, and this is one thing I've enjoyed, and I feel like one good bit of ROI for Stephen coming here, Stephen Bartlett, is the fact that we now talk about him a lot on this podcast. But another content recommendation this week is Craig David on Stephen Bartlett's podcast called Diary of a CEO. It's out now on YouTube. Craig David is a very, very special character in our lives. For those of you who don't know, when I first started off promoting, the first crew I had was called Love Garage. And although a lot of people from London and other parts of the UK would come to Manchester and tell me about Garage, tell me to get involved, get me to try and like it. They'd give me mixtapes, which I'd drive around in my car. It wasn't until I remember a very seminal performance where I think Craig David did Fill Me In or Rewind. I can't remember. And it was, I think we were all 19 years old. I remember walking down Oxford Street in Manchester, talking to a bunch of girls. Unanimously, the whole conversation was about Craig David. It was like, he was on Top of the Pops last night. For those of you from outside the UK, when we lived in a world when there's only a handful of channels, and one of the biggest music shows would be on a Thursday night at 7:30 on BBC One. They would feature only the best of the best in terms of pop music. Craig David was featured on there, and that was the moment where I think the genre, although it was a great genre, went from the underground to the mainstream. And he talks about, his rise to fame, being carried across Piccadilly Circus or Leicester Square on a bouncer's shoulders. An incredible thing, he talks about the song Rewind when the crowd say Bo Selector, because he used to have another song prior to that, which was called What You Want to Do. Yeah. And you hear him like sing that in other parts of other records. And he said that, he'd go on and he'd start performing, and obviously the DJ would wind the record back. And so he would, that's where, like, when the crowd say Bo Selector came from, that moment. And obviously he wrote a lot of this, 7 Days, so many hits. Many people spun off the back of him. You could argue that Jay Sean took a lot of that DNA. And it was, it's just a great interview. I'm about the 3/4 of the way mark through. What's also interesting as well about it is you got Stephen Bartlett, who is the internet content creator version of what Craig David was. 2 young, light-skinned, handsome dudes breaking the rules. And so Stephen's a good interviewer, but there's a certain thing about his connection to Craig David. There's a certain way that he presents his interest in the story that I thought was coming from a very genuine place and from a place of where he really wanted to learn. And that's really cool because, like, Craig David's like, I was in the US and he was doing 3 back-to-back shows at these like incredible, like seminal venue. I think it was like House of Blues or something. And he goes, one night he looked up and there was, in the balcony in this VIP section, there was Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez. And then on another night, the first night prior to that one, was Missy Elliott. And then on the final night, there was a lot of attention stirring in the crowd. And they were like, he's like, look, I need you to turn the lights up so I can see who it is. And he goes that it was Stevie Wonder. And Stevie Wonder was singing along to Craig's songs. Jeez. And then he goes, Stevie and Quincy Jones came backstage, and Quincy said, oh, M's got your album. And he goes, M who? He goes, MJ Michael. He plays Born to Do It all the time. And like Craig David's like, what?
I've heard that
So
story.
It's a superb interview. I can't wait to finish it. definitely go ahead and check that out. And any other content recommendations? I think that's about it.
That's everything. Let's end up with some shout outs.
All right, wicked. So let's do that. We've got some shout outs. So, of course, one more time, Gilt Burger, appreciate the lunch, Sweetheart Kitchen. We want to shout out our friend Mel, who invited us to the secret restaurant last night, who we cannot name, but we will make sure that we definitely give her a shout. And shout out to everybody else that was working in the restaurant that night. So Ahmed and
Nancy,
our waitress, and
Benson on the door.
Yeah, Benson, the security guy. Amazing dude. Okay, brilliant. So that was that. And we got a few birthday shout-outs today. Is Neda's birthday, who many of you have seen at the Love Soul parties. So shout out to her. Looking forward to celebrating with her. Supergirl. Danielle.
Yep.
Suchley, one of our good friends, and a CEO over at Blue Sky Thinking Group. Who else? You think it was Che's birthday this week?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like,
let's give Che a birthday shout-out over at Black. Even if it's not his birthday, we can just
give him a shout anyway.
We'll give him a shout anyway because he's a great dude. And there was one other person as well whose name I can't remember. I don't know, whatever. Have another birthday later on this year and we'll do it again. Okay, so that's it. Anything else you need to cover?
That's it. We're all done.
Thanks so much for listening, guys, and watching. Now, here's the call to action that we need you to act on ASAP. Number one, hit us up on Instagram because I know we need to put out more micro clips. We're definitely going to do it this week. But if you want to get in contact with us, my Instagram is at Raj Kotecha, RAJKOTECHA. Vik is on.
VIKMORJARIA.
Yeah, and you can hit us up, Raj, R-A-J, or Vik, V-I-K, at creativecontentagency.com. Lots of exciting stuff coming up. I can tell you that if today and tomorrow and the next few days goes the way it's meant to be, ALGO next week's going to have some big announcements. And if you're checking this out on Spotify, if you're listening or watching, because now you can watch this video on Spotify, just drop us a 5-star rating. It's up in the top left corner when you go to the channel. 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast if you use that, and any other app that you use, just give us whatever love is on that. Make sure you share it. YouTube crew, make sure you subscribe. I've noticed the numbers have been going up, and I'm very happy about that. So please drop us a subscribe, hit us with the subscribe button, notification bell to get these episodes as soon as they come out. Give us a like and a comment. Would be super grateful. And without any further ado, we swan into our weekend. Likelihood of this being out tomorrow, Friday?
90%.
All right. Enjoy. Happy Friday, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll speak to you next week. Peace.